5 on a Saturday. Welcome to Cozy Corner TV, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Karen Smith. Call me Q, and we are back on the corner. What's up, everybody? First and foremost, I want to give a special shout out to one of my best friends in the world, Mr. Robert White. Today is his birthday today. You guys don't know Rob. I haven't had him on the channel, but this person is very near and dear to my heart. Best man at my wedding. Been my friend now for it's probably been 20 years. I literally have had very few friends that have reached that mile marker. So I'm going to just chalk that up to the Lord feels like he needs to be in my life. So shout out to Mr. White. You're getting old. When I met him, he was in his last year of high school. He's an old guy now. He's 30. So I just felt like I should point that out. I am older than him, but still, I felt like I should point that out. All right, guys. So with that being said, let's jump into things. My fault about not being able to get on today. Had a busy day with the family. So I'll be able to make that up to you guys on Monday, where we'll go live twice on Monday, because I like to do it at least once a week. I believe I did go live twice last Monday. This past Monday, I believe I did. So let's jump into the live stream, guys. Shout out to Value-tainment. Let's see who we had on here. We had Sean Hannity on here. I know that was that one, but okay. Well, Patrick Bet David had Sean Hannity on here having a conversation with him. I actually played this on the live stream. I think it was Wednesday. It might have been, if not Wednesday or Tuesday. But the reason why I want to play it tonight is because when we jump to the next clip, shout out to the Young Turks. We actually get to see what Sean Hannity is talking about here when it kind of has that title in there, Tucker's Not My Friend. And this kind of goes towards some of the anti-Israel comments that Tucker kind of made on this podcast. So first and foremost, we're going to watch that one first, and then we're going to jump to Sean Hannity and Patrick David Beck talking. So in this one, we have Sean Hannity. Shout out to the Young Turks. They actually covered this. Now, I grabbed this clip because this is a shorter version of it. Tucker Carlson actually had this interview on his channel. It is available for you guys to go watch it now with Anna. But I think it's an hour and 48 minutes or something like that. So I'm not going to try to find this exact moment there because I don't think he's sliced it up yet to where we can see the different moments. So I just grabbed it from the Young Turks. So shout out to them. We reacted to the Young Turks on the channel before. It says Anna makes eye-opening appearance on Tucker Carlson's show. Now that was not too long ago where they put this up. That was the 25th. I think Tucker had his interview a little bit before this though. And then we'll jump over to Patrick Beck David's Value-tainment, where he talks about Tucker's not my friend. And these are some of the anti-Israel comments that Tucker Carlson has said, and Sean Hannity kind of talks about that a little bit and how that affects him and their friendship. Then we'll switch gears and we'll jump over to Fox News. Shout out to Fox News. It says, "This is explosive." So this is Ted Cruz kind of going on a little bit of a tangent here, right? We like Ted Cruz. But just talking about a little bit of the Obama stuff, how he's disappointed about it, what should come of it, how this is something that's been going on for some time. Then we'll switch gears, still sticking with Fox News. We got Kevin O'Leary in the house. This is the most important thing Trump can do. So Kevin O'Leary is pointing to, they're talking about the tariffs here, and someone asks about, there was a reporter that asked President Trump about with the tariffs, could there be a possibility that Americans might not pay taxes? And then President Trump alluded to something on the White House lawn where there might be some sort of rebate that could possibly come back to Americans in a certain tax bracket. So Kevin O'Leary kind of talks about this. The odd thing is people would probably think Kevin O'Leary wouldn't mind a rebate check, but he's actually not interested in it. And that's not shocking to me because he's a money guy, so he understands money. So he's more no, pay down the debt, take care of the debt. I don't need a rebate check. The best thing we can do for America is get rid of the large, gross amount of debt that we have. So we'll watch Kevin O'Leary talk about that. And then we'll jump over to Fox News again. Last clip of the live stream, we got Bongino posts cryptic message on FBI findings. It says, "I'll never be the same." So we'll take a look at some of Dan Bongino's comments referencing something that he saw, right? I actually had this from Face the Nation from White House Speaker Mike Johnson. This one was from Face the Nation. Shout out to them. It was the extended interview, and it said Mike Johnson talks Epstein, controversy, big beautiful bill, and more. Now this was 2 days ago, so I think I had a shorter clip of this that we looked at, but not this whole entire thing. But I'll go ahead and I'll save this for the next time that we go live, which will probably be Monday. So we're gonna jump into the first clip of the live stream, guys. First up, we got Tucker Carlson and Anna. Shout out to them. The Young Turks covered. Anna makes eye-opening appearance on the Tucker Carlson show. About a 16-minute clip. Might not watch the whole thing, but we'll go a couple minutes in. Let's take a listen.
Israel, right? Oftentimes when we talk about foreign aid that goes to Israel, at this point I believe it's about, $4 billion a year, on top of all the military aid that we've been pumping into Israel.
Baby, shout out to you. Hello, Grow, go ahead and give away. Shout out to you, Goat, one of my moderators in the house. Shout out to Grow.
For the last 2 years. I mean, it's unacceptable to me that we're doing that. And in the backdrop of that, you have the United States Congress cutting $1.1 trillion to Medicaid? Really? That's the problem? That's where we need to cut funding from? And by the way, also cutting funding to food assistance?
So that set might look familiar. I assume that person does, because of course that's our Anna Kasparian who went on Tucker Carlson's show. That clip was from just the first few minutes of the interview. She's already beating Trump on the spending bill, the completely out of whack economic priorities of the Republicans in Congress and in the White House. And she did have a lot more to say about the budget bill. We're gonna get to that shortly, but Jane, what was your immediate reaction when you saw her appearance?
Yeah, so I loved it. And so, look guys, I'll tell you the most animating thing for me, and then I'll tell you why it was also good for other reasons. For me, I'm obsessed with ending the genocide in Gaza. And so I will take any ally that's going to help me end the genocide in Gaza. So if you say I shouldn't and I'm morally impure, no problem. Okay, then I'm impure, okay? And if you say, okay, I won't deal with Tucker, that's gonna keep me pure, great, then you're pure, no problem, we agree, okay? But I'm gonna do whatever I need to do to end that genocide. And Tucker is as important an ally as there is in that, because the current president is not a Democrat, is not a left-winger. The current president is a right-winger. His name is Donald Trump. And we do not affect his base. Tucker Carlson definitely affects his base, okay? So if you want to move Trump, you can go on. In fact, today I went on a show where we were supposed to debate, but we largely, 98% agreed with Richard Wolff, who's a really interesting professor, who advocates for some form of Marxism, communism, etc. Okay, I'm a capitalist. And we had this super interesting conversation. We'll put it up on tyt.com/press. We'll also put this up on tyt.com/press, okay? So, I don't care if you're super left, super right, max this or that. If we're saying, let's end this genocide, I'm gonna ask for your help. But if you say, hey, who's more likely to move Trump on this issue? Professor Wolff that I talked to today, or Tucker Carlson, who Anna talked to? Of course it's Tucker, of course it is. There isn't any communist professor who's gonna move Donald Trump. Tucker has a shot at it. If you say it's not a good enough shot, good, I'll take it. I don't care if it's a 1% shot, I'll take it. Then on top of that, she's telling everybody that they were wrong to cut Medicaid, they were wrong to cut staff. And then the other major issue that we agree on, the Epstein files. Why isn't it released? Why isn't it released? Pressure from the right, pressure from the left. So I thought she did a brilliant job, and I'm thrilled that she went on there.
I don't really have time for the purity test. People on the left, people who call themselves leftists, feeling like, oh, they can't be unwashed and deal with the Tucker Carlson. Look, like, if you've been paying attention to the direction that he's moving, it's in a more populist direction. This guy will go on his show and say that Americans shouldn't pay their credit card debt because a 25%, 30% interest rate is criminal and cruel and immoral. And that's just a disgusting way to make a living for yourself, is putting people into that kind of crushing debt than killing them with interest. The war is abroad. Like, Tucker Carlson is adamantly against the Iran stuff, obviously adamant against the war, the siege in Gaza, the genocide in Gaza. Look, I'm not with Tucker Carlson on immigration. Like, he's kind of a little bit, not even a little bit, he's way out there. He actually thinks Bill O'Reilly is not white enough because he's Irish Catholic, right? And Tucker's like a psychopath wasp who like believes in the true Anglo tradition of whiteness. Like, Yeah, for sure. His replacement theory stuff, I think, is racist and disgusting, but also I think it's quite stupid and easily disproven. When you talk about replacement theory, you got a guy like freaking Ted Cruz who's Cuban. Like, what's not right about Ted Cruz? Who the hell is he replacing, right? Like Tucker has his problems, but the idea that you won't go to somebody who's got a major audience where you can get like 2 million people on a freaking video so that Anna could espouse the views that we've been trying to push for here at TYT for decades or whatever it's been. I think you're just complete idiot if you think that's a bad idea. I'm sorry, I have no respect for that take. Like the idea that you can't talk to Tucker Carlson because he has takes that you disagree with. I think that's utterly,
That's
honestly,
ridiculous.
I don't even think it's intellectually serious, Jake. Like the idea that we even pay lip service to these folks, I think is a mistake. They're idiots. I'm sorry.
I think it comes down to what you use the time for. I mean, if you were to go on there and just like, you know, Tucker Carlson were talking about how awesome the camp of the Saints is or whatever, then that's probably a waste of time. You shouldn't, I wouldn't do that. But if you come out guns blazing, this bill was terrible, it's gonna hurt people, even focus on the fact that it's gonna hurt MAGA. Millions of Republicans are gonna lose their health insurance, they're gonna lose their food stamps. It turns out poor white people use food stamps at very high rates. If you focus
don't
on that,
say.
and then you maybe hit on a couple things that we already know that Donald Trump is weak on, like the fact that he lied about being anti-intervention when he comes out like declaring he's going to invade Greenland, and obviously he bombed Iran and all that, then that could potentially be useful. You use the access provided to you to get through to that audience on, you know, areas where you think you can actually move them. And I think that she immediately, again, that's why I was stressing it was just the first few minutes, she immediately was doing that.
Yeah, so I want to go to some other sites real quick, the videos. But I will say, I mean, we're living super trippy times, right? So I'm a capitalist. Professor Wolf that I mentioned earlier is somewhere between socialist and Marxist. It's a little bit complicated. And then Tucker obviously is way to the right of us. And so somehow the three of us, or include Anna, the four of us, are magically agreeing on what the problem is. We have slightly different solutions, right? But like, yeah, the rich and powerful are screwing us all, and we don't run our own government. And so the fact that it's this amazing coalition that is not a coalition, but all agrees, yeah, we're definitely getting screwed, is just. I grew up in a time when people did not agree to that. I grew up in a time when mainstream media ruled everything. And they told you the status quo was great and there was no problems and the politicians were not corrupt and the donors did not rule things. So now when you've got professors on the left, you know, me and Anna and Tucker all the way on the right, and we all agree on all of these populist things, again, we don't have to agree on all the solutions or all the different policies. It's amazing. To John's point, Anna told a story of how the woman driving her to Tucker's interview was really mad about the so-called big beautiful bill because, oh, we have that one? Here, let's watch that.
One of the drivers who picked me up, Jen, she mentioned the big beautiful bill that just passed. And you know, I can tell she identifies as Republican, and she wasn't happy with that bill. And I suspected that most ordinary working class Americans, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, are not happy with that bill.
Yes.
You know, the $1.1 trillion in cuts to Medicaid, that's what she brought up. She brought that up. And I thought that was really fascinating. Now, if you talk to someone who identifies as a liberal Democrat, they'll probably think, oh, these Republican voters, they're so greedy. All they want is tax cuts. They want to cut the social safety net. But no, actually, when it comes to ordinary people, there's a lot of agreement. A lot of agreement.
Like y'all got a case of the
Like that gentleman just said, the four of them have slightly different approaches on everything, but they all are agreeing on what the problem is.
So I watched it, and that driver voted for Trump, and that's why she was so disappointed. She didn't think that like her Medicaid was going to get cut, and that's what happens when you talk to people that are on the other side and you find out what's happening. Since we're in a little bit of a hurry here, I want to go to the last clip here. If you're wondering why Anna went on Carlson's show, here's your answer.
My feelings toward coming on your show went from I would never in a million years to kind of giving myself the opportunity to listen to your podcast to figure out who you really are. Because of course I had very strong thoughts about who you are.
Really?
Yeah, but I realized that it was based on clips that I would watch of you that had gone viral. And they had gone viral because they were offensive, or you had said something that was
viral, like syphilis is viral.
I mean, pretty much. I think that some of what you've been talking about lately, like, hits at the heart of what I care most about. And that's the importance of this country representing the American people, the importance of the United States being a sovereign country.
Do you sincerely think that anybody on either side of the aisle, which doesn't even exist, but whatever, left, right, wherever, could watch what you said for the last almost 2 hours and come away angry?
I mean, if you're Zionist, probably. This is the message that I want people who might feel angry to take away from me. I don't give a... That's it.
Okay. That's gotta be a meme, man. I did not expect her to end it that way. That was the end of the interview. So, yeah. And so, by the way, some of the clips that went viral about Tucker are terrible, right? But what was interesting is in that interview, he said a couple of times, I wish I hadn't said some of those things.
Yeah.
Amazing what happens when you have a conversation.
change.
Super last one. This is Anna talking about Trump's fake populism in front of Tucker Carlson.
I don't think that Trump has carried out his promises because of, well, there's a lot of different examples I can cite, but the most recent is the so-called Big Beautiful Bill. Yeah, there are some provisions in there, no tax on tips. It's going to be means tested, and it also expires in 4 years, whereas the tax benefits that disproportionately benefit the wealthy are permanent. The no tax on, the elderly or Social Security, that also will expire, and it's up to a certain amount. I think it's like $6,000 if I'm not mistaken. The child tax credit, I think, was just peanuts compared to what I think this country could afford in helping families. You want to encourage people to have kids?
Yeah.
Okay, best way to do it is to create an economic situation where couples feel comfortable bringing life into this world.
I agree.
And then no tax on overtime. That's another example. That's also means tested, and that's a provision that will expire in 2028. If you really want to represent the working class, you got to put your money where your mouth is, and I haven't really seen it to the extent that Trump claimed he was going to help the working class in this country.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How many people on the right knew that the tax on tips and overtime, that the relief on that is temporary, but the tax cuts for the wealthy are permanent? Maybe a lot did, and maybe some didn't, and maybe some of those folks learned that today, right? So that's why I love the conversation overall. Last thoughts, guys.
Yeah, again, I think that if you can use that opportunity, if somebody like Anna can go in, or if Bernie Sanders did it or something like that, even people I don't necessarily always agree with, like occasionally like a Pete Buttigieg will go on Fox News or whatever and use the opportunity for what it's worth or whatever. I think that's great. I still think that Tucker Carlson is a horrible person. I think that he made himself what he wanted to be over the course of his career, chasing an audience. He told them what he thought they wanted to hear. I think that he also told that he didn't tell them stuff that he knew to be true, that he knew they wouldn't want to hear, like about Donald Trump. He kept his true feelings about Donald Trump secret for years, and then came out and supported the guy right before the election. And so I worry, like, again, use him for whatever you can, but he's a guy that has said what he needs to generate an audience for years. I don't know any reason to believe that he stopped doing that when he left Fox News. And I think he has been, as Waz pointed out, and he's viciously racist. I think he's fairly anti-democratic. I think he's totally fine with a much more explicitly Christian form of government. And so all of that remains incredibly problematic and needs to be fought. I think that he's potentially a very dangerous person. Like, for instance, if he decided to run for office, I think he's somebody that needs to be taken very seriously for those reasons. But that said, he is influential. He does have a big audience. And I think that Anna, the way she presented the argument was very well calibrated to get through to the people who would listen to him.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say one thing that I don't know if people will find controversial. I don't care about the arc of his career. I care if he still has opinions that are problematic and that I'm gonna fight against, right? That I care a lot about. But if, he got to here in a weird way or in a disingenuous way or in a wrong way, well, if he got to the point where he's saying, let's stop the genocide and let's release the Epstein files and the American people are getting screwed and we should relieve credit card debt, I don't really care how he got there. I care that that's what he's telling his audience. I care that we agree on that, and I would love to get those things done. Whether any of us on the right or left is going to get it done, it's a different matter. Was last week.
Yeah, I mean, it's so much as I think Tucker, like, again, there's a lot of, this guy has a massive audience. Like, there are many Americans who agree with the dude's message, right? And I choose not to be, like, deathly afraid or, like, you know, completely repulsed by the existence of these people.
Don't be.
And
It's not
all
that
I would say
serious.
is why Tucker Carlson is pretty dangerous is that I think an actual right-wing populist message, which is bigger government, social safety net for people, married with an insane xenophobic immigration policy, lock down the border, deport people, I think that would be massively popular. And I think that is pretty scary when you talk about Tucker Carlson. All that other stuff, I don't really get too excited about.
Yeah, actually, I lied. I'm gonna say one last thing. So I think that part of the reason why, as Waz was talking, I realized part of the reason why I'm not as bothered by hate-hearted people who don't agree with you is because I grew up Muslim in this country. Like, if I eliminated everyone who had stereotypical ideas about Muslims in their heads, I'd be talking to the wall, right? So, like, I lived in a situation where I was forced to talk to people who had completely crazy ideas about Muslims my whole life. Not everybody, not most people, but was there a ton of people who thought, if I said, oh, how dare you, you Islamophobe, blah, 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 I'd have eliminated at least 40% of the population. I don't know. So to me, talking to someone who has wild, crazy ideas, even about you, is Tuesday. So what?
Yeah.
Then what happens?
Yeah.
And then you know what I do usually with those folks is I get them to realize, oh my God, it turns out Muslims are human beings. Okay, well, we made a little progress that day, okay? And that's how you make progress, by not sitting in your cave. Okay, that's my opinion. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true.
One person at a time, one conversation at a time, one step at a time. That's how you make the change in the conversations. It's funny to watch people be so intimidated to have a conversation with someone that doesn't have the same kind of views as them. And unfortunately, I get surrounded around people like that often. I mean, it's sad to see, you know, but I guess at some point, especially when I was younger, I just really didn't realize how important it was for people to be people pleasers. So a lot of the times when I'm in situations like that, it's just about somebody I don't want to be offensive, you know, I don't want to say something to make this person mad at me or upset with me. But it's like two adults can agree to disagree. I do it all the time. I sometimes I have my moderators, shout out to Grow a Garden, that's one of my favorite moderators, other than 1414. And I'm looking for more, so eventually I will add more. But I love the fact that the other day Grow was like, somebody was in the chat being stupid, and Grow was like, hey Q, do you want me to kick this person out? Like, do you want me to put them in a timeout? And I was like, nah, you can leave them. You know, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I don't get offended by things like that. But you have people that, like, you know, they'll come in, they'll say something and someone's already angry, or they're ready to fight, or they're ready to push back. And it's just like, dude, an opinion's an opinion. If we don't agree on something, we don't have to agree on it. But that doesn't mean, like, I have to hate you, you have to hate me, we can't have a conversation. Now we're being immature at that point. All right, guys, so we're going to switch gears, and we're going to go to Value-tainment. Shout out to Patrick Ben David. Tucker's not my friend. So Sean Hannity questions Tucker Carlson's controversial anti-Israel stance. So, for those of you that might be wondering, if people are saying that Tucker Carlson is racist, why would I even watch him on my channel? Well, I've been watching Tucker Carlson for quite a few years. He is a little bit older than me. And yeah, I can definitely see the side of him where over the years he said things to draw audience. A lot of people say things like that. They end up saying something stupid that they regret. Clearly we can see that Tucker has gone through that, because he said that some of those things I wish I had never said. Okay, well, there's plenty of things I wish I never said 10 years ago and 12 and when I was younger and a lot less disciplined and dumber, right? But nonetheless, you learn from those things. So people can change, someone can be different. I just happen to like Tucker's take on some things, and like the African American gentleman said on there from his platform, and just you can have a conversation with someone that doesn't see eye to eye with you. Just because someone else thinks Tucker's extremely racist, you know, I could be the judge of that on my own. Someone else might think he's racist, and I might be like, hey, I'm not really offended by him, you know. So I think that that's just a very subjective thing. So we're gonna listen to Sean Hannity talk about some of Tucker's comments about Israel, some of his point of views about Israel, and how he personally feels about it as far as their relationship goes. Let's take a listen.
You've been on Fox 30, okay? O'Reilly was there 20. I don't know how long he was there. Let's just say give or take 20, right? Tucker was there for a number. Megyn Kelly was there for a number of years. From the outside watching now, Bill O'Reilly does a lot of stuff with News Nation, Cuomo. You know, we've had him on.
He's on my radio show once a week.
I actually love hearing what he has to say because again, he's another one of these OGs. When he talks, I'm kind of trying to hear to say what's he saying because he sometimes takes a different angle than everybody else.
Shout out to Bill O'Reilly.
Processing what Tucker's doing because Tucker has taken certain positions in when it comes down to Israel, when it comes down to Epstein, when it comes down to certain interviews he's done, when it comes down to what he feels is different. A lot of it may be seen as controversial, maybe to folks at Fox. How do you view the positions that Tucker has taken the last couple of years?
You know, all of us are making a pretty good living because of the First Amendment and freedom of speech. I said earlier, broadcasting is not a zero-sum game. My success is not due to somebody else's failure or success, and it's based on what I do. But whether what you say I agree with or I disagree with, and I have heard things that all the people you mentioned have said, and Bill O'Reilly's been on my radio show, and we'll disagree on a topic. But at the end of the day, that is the biggest glass of water I've ever seen in my life. What the hell is that?
Focus, Sean.
There's
You need a little more. Drink something. What is? It's like this.
Well, the goal is to finish is by the end of the podcast.
So at the end of the day is, let the people decide. And I respect the fact that we live in a great country where you're going to give your opinion and then the public will judge you for it. One thing that I think is critical for success is that you be genuine and sincere and not manufactured or phony or fake. And if you stay true to who you are, I believe, you just put the.
I told you, Sean, this is yours.
You
high quality.
What you sold to me, you're the distributor.
Sugar Hannity's property in Colombia, which is in Medellin.
Did you see LJ who was on Fox and Friends the other morning? They were talking about Coca-Cola and pure cane sugar.
Yeah.
I love Mexican Coke. LJ, Lawrence Jones.
Oh my God.
I do too. It has sugar cane in it.
And then Ainsley and Brian are looking at him and he goes, "No, I really do love Mexican Coke." He's like, went right
over the head. Yeah.
It was a funny moment. But back to your question. Don't you respect? Aren't we blessed when you think about it? We live in a country where you can have anything.
I do.
And then you build an audience based on whether or not enough people want to hear what you have to say.
But some of the positions Tucker's taken would be a different.
I disagree with him.
Okay, so
For example, he interviewed some historian, and and this has kind of gone a little viral. I don't care that he has a different view than me. I just don't care. I mean, he had a different view about Iran and the nuclear sites than I did. I don't care that he does. I have to be true to who I am. And he had a historian, and there's this narrative that's been making the rounds that, Winston Churchill, blood, toil, tears, and sweat, what is our aim? Victory. I love Winston Churchill. That somehow, it's not the best thing that we won World War II. Now, my father spent 4 years in the Pacific, by the way, and wasn't the best life, and he grew up very, very poor. But to me, Winston Churchill was one of the most heroic people in our time. It's just a disagreement.
That's
you
a
want to have a
fact.
different opinion, fine. But
I
the
can
argument is,
confirm that.
Western civilization has not thrived since then, and that Europe has declined since then. My answer to that would be Ronald Reagan, who said, you know, freedom is only one generation away from extinction. And so, yeah, Winston Churchill was the hero of World War II to me. And I would argue with the historian guest that he had. But guess what, Patrick, David, you know what? You live in a free country. Express your views. If that's what you think, express it.
What do you think about what Tucker is doing these days? This might be a controversial opinion on Tucker, but to me, he's sort of masquerading and cosplaying as a populist. When he's almost like the elite, he's sort of basically saying, I'm anti-establishment. There's, you know, we say one of one. He's one of one. Tom Brady's one of one. Michael Jordan's one of one. Tucker's also one of one. Because he's the only person, you've been at Fox News 30 years, that's had his own main show on cable, Fox, CNN, and MSNBC. So it's almost like he's syndicating his views all over mainstream of being like, oh shucks, I'm just a little old huckleberry here in khakis and a bow tie, chewing my dip, I don't know nothing about nothing. It's like, you know the establishment better than anybody, Tucker, and now you're like, oh, I'm anti-establishment, I'm being counterculture. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, I'm first of all, not following it that closely. I'm too wrapped up in my own world, my own opinions, my own shows. My answer to you is, I've never had a problem with any of the people that you mentioned, and you know, there used to be a time where at Fox there was a lot of tension between hosts. For me, that's just evaporated. I wish everybody the best. If you listen to the people that you mentioned, I've heard every one of them say that they are happier than they've ever been doing what they're doing now. I'm happy doing what I'm doing now. They made their career choices, I made my career choices, and I'm happy with mine. And I honestly, truly, sincerely wish everybody the best. I'm not in this intramural, you know, my life is dependent on what somebody else said. I don't care.
Do you speak to Tucker at all, or do you guys
I have
a relationship?
occasionally, you know, once I reached out to him when his father died, you know, just to wish him prayers, and we had one little exchange over just a stupid issue. But it was very
wish
friendly.
prayers, Sean.
We have never had a problem. What's up?
Are you guys more friends or colleagues? You
We're
and
not
Tucker?
friends in as much as like I'm friends with Mark Levin.
Yeah.
Thank me. God bless us. That's it. I'm done. So you're not laughing at my invitations. This is not good. I'm bombing
That
on your
was
show.
actually better than the previous one. The Mark Levin was better than Churchill.
Try
my trim.
Every once in a while,
Because
Tom will do an impersonation, and when he does, he gets it good about 1 out of 10 times.
Who does?
Tom over there. He does a good impersonation.
I did my best.
Who's your best?
Bill Clinton, probably.
I want to say to all hot chicks here in the audience that if you want to tour backstage, I'll be glad to give it to you.
I think you all misunderstood, and all the prosecution against me, I just have 3 words to defend myself. That's my wife.
So that's
I
it
think
for
he got you on that one.
Okay, we get the next story. We get the next story.
man.
We
He's
get
a
the
drug
next
dealer, he's not a freaking, you know, Vinny, relax, buddy.
story. We get the next story.
I think I like my Winston Churchill.
I like that also.
It was the best.
Blood, toil, tears, and sweat.
Yeah, I like Levin more. I like Mark Levin more. Yeah.
You want my real Mark Levin?
Yeah.
All right, here's Mark Levin. Imagine if Kamala Harris won the last election, right? This would be the next episode of Life, Liberty, and Levin.
Okay, this is an aneurysm coming, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It is.
You dumb bastards! You just ruined the country! The Constitution's to shit! I cannot believe how stupid you all are!
That's it. I'm done.
Speaking of Tucker, did you hear about the offer that DVD made to Tucker?
No, what'd you do?
This was a few years
This
ago.
was a while back.
What was your? You got like 1 million podcasters underneath this umbrella.
Yeah,
right?
no, we made an offer a while back. But that was a 3 years, Tom, what was it, 3 years ago or 2 years ago?
What
2
happened?
years ago.
When did it, May 2022?
2 weeks after he left.
2 years.
Was it 2 years or 3?
Remember, he took a break, then we
Yeah,
found out he
anyway,
was
so
over in
we made a
West Florida.
$100 million offer for 5 years.
That was 1 year ago.
Well, that's the caveat.
No, that was an update.
That's why
Oh,
you turned
gotcha.
it
Okay,
down.
2 years ago.
What'd you offer me? We negotiated.
But
No.
looking back at it, I mean, maybe you want to get Hannity's take on this.
What-
Are you glad that he said no?
No, I think there's there's 2 ways you have to look at talent, and I look at it in 2 different ways. Okay, one of the ways that you look at it is credibility and trust of what they say the market believes. 2, their credit score. How often are they right? How often are they wrong? 3, the risks they're willing to take, a position that others are not willing to take. It's a very massive risk. He takes risks. 4, the ability to handle yourself and be battle tested. Most guys cannot be battle tested. This thing sucks to be in the fire. This is why I think, deep down inside, I called this 3 years ago, I think Tucker may want to run in 2028. And I think Tucker's maybe positioned himself to do something in 2028. I don't know. I see, you say Churchill, wasn't he a journalist before? Wasn't he in that space before he went out there and ran? And Tucker's background's very interesting, that maybe one day he runs. I don't know.
Now when they get now when he does that laugh on stage, it's over.
Yeah,
Howard Dean had to, I think, end his campaign because he said, yeah.
This guy went
Wait till you see Tucker's laugh.
With Howard Dean's I Have a Scream speech.
This guy went to Turning Point USA. This guy went to Turning Point USA, okay, and called out Israel and got a cheer at Turning Point USA. 1, that's a risky position to take. 2,
Not these days.
well, not necessarily.
But at Turning Point USA it is.
But all I'm
It's
saying
extremely
is,
conservative.
Half of Turning Point was excited when he said that.
no, not necessarily. No.
That's why they cheered.
Adam, what I'm trying to tell you is, 2 years ago, that would have never happened.
Yeah.
The climate has changed and people are processing information in a different way. I'm not playing this, but all I'm saying is the fact that the climate has changed and he's taken some positions. If it doesn't work out for him, it's a massive drop-off. That's why there's the risk. And that's why, it's risky to take some positions. The Wall Conference, September 8th through the 11th, nearly 12,000.
Yeah, all right. I'll stop that there. You guys can head over to Value-tainment. Check out Patrick Bet David on Value-tainment with Sean Hannity and the rest of his hosts. We stopped here at about 11-minute mile marker, so you guys can go watch the rest of that. I totally agree with them. I mean, I did know about that offer, but I mean, he kind of refreshed my memory on it. 100 million is a lot, but honestly, like Tucker Carlson, he's probably seen that. If I'm honest, like he's made a lot of money in the past. Let's take a look at it. Does it show us? It says, I mean, it's giving me two different answers, but it looks like, so this is Times of India. They probably have him at the highest as far as Tucker Carlson's net worth. See, it's like they probably have him the highest. So this is Times of India. They have net worth. They say as of 2025 estimates place Tucker Carlson's net worth between 420 million and 2 billion. So, which reflects his multifaceted income streams and investments. His substantial earnings stems from various sources, including podcasting, streaming services, book royalties, and strategic investments. So, yeah. And Patrick Bet-David gave him $100 million offer. So, I mean, his net worth is between 420 and 2 billion. So, that's why I said I know Tucker's probably already seen more than that. So I would understand why he would say no. Probably just to cut the middleman out, like just understanding Tucker Carlson if you've been watching him, and that money's going to him. But yeah, I totally agree with Patrick when he says that, the guy's willing to take risks. I mean, I thought it was crazy talking some of the points that he hit on at Turning Point. I was like, wow. So yeah, some things he got to cheer for. I was kind of surprised about. Because I was like, wow, this is a overpowering, overwhelmingly conservative crowd. And nonetheless, when he came at Israel a certain way, he did get cheers. So that says a lot. It says that the climate is changing, like Patrick Bet-David said. All right, guys, we're going to switch gears and over on Fox News. It says this is explosive. So we have Ted Cruz going over some of the Trump, Russia, Obama hoax out there that is just going crazy right now. So let's take a listen.
Obama's caught and the press circles. That's the focus of tonight's angle.
Do you believe that any of this new information implicates former President Obama in criminal behavior?
we have referred and will continue to refer all of these documents to the Department of Justice and the FBI to investigate the criminal implications of this. The evidence, correct. The evidence that we have found and that we have released directly point to President Obama leading the manufacturing of this intelligence assessment. There are multiple pieces of evidence and intelligence that confirm that fact.
Her presentation was measured and methodical. Today, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, appearing in the White House briefing room, explained what led to this criminal referral regarding Obama's involvement in the Russia hoax.
DNI Clapper's assistant sent an email to the intelligence community with the subject line, POTUS tasking on Russia election meddling, tasking ODNI leaders to create a new assessment per the president's request. The House Intelligence Committee oversight report that we released today reveals that, quote, unlike routine intelligence community analysis, the intelligence community assessment was a high-profile product ordered by the president, President Obama.
I want to buy your house. I can pay you cash for your house no matter what condition it's in. If you need to sell your house for any reason, click the button under this video to see if my offer is right for you. We make the process of selling your house easy and simple. No commissions, no fees. We'll buy your house in as-is condition, and you pick the closing date. No approach.
And that, of course, begs the question, will anyone be held accountable? Now, recall Obama's reaction yesterday. He brushed off Trump's allegations of treason by claiming that everyone, including Marco Rubio, then on the Senate Intel Committee, believed Russia had tried to influence the election. Director Gabbard addressed this as well.
I'm not asking you to take my word for it. I'm asking you and the media to conduct honest journalism and the American people to see for yourself in the documents that we've released now, close to 200 pages, that point in multiple references, multiple examples, to include comments that have been made by senior intelligence professionals who are some still working within these agencies today that confirm the conclusions that we have drawn. That President Obama directed an intelligence community assessment to be created to further this contrived false narrative that ultimately led to a years-long coup to try to undermine President Trump's presidency.
So 100
But the point being,
pages.
the election
At first they were
was
like it
not
was
saying that
a
Russia
quarter of
wanted
a
to
million.
influence the election. It was directing a new intel
I
assessment
heard that
based on the
somewhere, but I knew it was a
dossier in
crazy
order to
number.
hobble the Trump presidency from day one. Went on for years, really, leaving many Americans in the 2020 election cycle to believe that Putin essentially put Trump in office. You were voting to re-elect Trump, you were voting for Putin. And that, basically Trump was just a Russian stooge. And Obama will, of course, dispute all of this. He's going to say he was just trying to get at the truth and that Trump and his supporters are trying to deflect from Epstein with a new conspiracy. And the press, of course, is already helping with that.
A lot of people feel
What
like
would you say
that.
to people who believe that you're only releasing these documents now to improve your standing with the president after he said that your intelligence assessments were wrong?
The only people who are suggesting that the Director of National Intelligence would release evidence to try to boost her standing with the president are the people in this room who constantly try to sow distrust and chaos amongst the president's cabinet, and it is not working.
White House press secretary.
Of course, the press played its starring role in the 2016 and 2020 elections, most buying lock, stock, and barrel that Trump somehow colluded with Putin. And now they don't want to admit that they were wrong, that they didn't do their jobs. And by the way, they're still not doing their jobs. Today we learned that during the campaign, DNI Gabbard says the Russian spy agency had information alleging that Hillary had huge mental health problems.
There were high-level DNC emails that detailed evidence of Hillary's, quote, psycho-emotional problems, uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness, and that then Secretary Clinton was allegedly on a daily regimen of heavy tranquilizers.
Well, we reached out to Hillary Clinton's office, and we
No
have yet to
comment.
hear back. Joining
Yeah.
us now to discuss all of this,
No comment.
Senator Ted Cruz from the great state of Texas. Senator, are we going to actually see people held accountable here?
Look, I hope and pray that we do, and I hope that the Justice Department fully investigates this. What's critical that Tulsi Gabbard made public is not that people put out allegations that Putin wanted Trump to win. It's that they were lying and knew they were lying. That's what's explosive here. It is that their repeated testimony to Congress was false. And you go through some of the facts that Tulsi put out. So August 31st, 2016, a DHS official tells former DNI James Clapper that there was, quote, no indication of a Russian threat to directly manipulate the actual vote count. That's what they're saying in August of 2016. September 2nd, 2016, the FBI said it was, quote, uncomfortable, implying that there was definitive information that Russia intends to disrupt our elections. September 9th, the intelligence community concluded that, quote, Russia was probably not trying to influence the election by using cyber means. September 12th, same thing. December 7th, after the election, here was Clapper's talking points written, quote, foreign adversaries did not use cyber attacks on election infrastructure to alter the U.S. presidential election outcome. December 8th, Obama's presidential daily briefing, here's what it said, quote, we assess that Russian and criminal actors did not impact recent U.S. election results by conducting malicious cyber activities against election infrastructure. So all the way up to December 8th, over and over and over again, they say, no Russia, no Russia, no Russia. And then December 9th, there's a meeting with DNI Director Clapper, with National Security Advisor Susan Rice, with Secretary of State John Kerry, and with Deputy FBI Director McCabe, in which they reverse their positions altogether, and they all come out to say, Russia. That's why Trump got elected. And I'll tell you, this December 9th meeting, FDR famously said December 7th is a date that will live in infamy. Well, December 9th should be a day that will live in infamy, because this is a moment when senior members of our government decided to lie to the American people and to sabotage President Donald Trump, who'd just been elected by the American people.
In a CNN interview back in 2018, former DNI Chief Clapper admitted something about Obama. Watch.
If it weren't for President Obama, we might not have done the intelligence community assessment that we did that set off a whole sequence of events which are still unfolding today, notably Special Counsel Mueller's investigation. President Obama is responsible for that, and it was he who tasked us to do that intelligence community assessment in the first place.
No, he wasn't admitting that it was all false, but he said it was Obama. This was after the entire intel community had, as you read, made their assessments, which are always changing. They're always, they're assessments. There never can be definitive conclusions. But the indication was Russia wasn't, according to even what Obama said yesterday. He's still lying.
And they suddenly erased everything they had been saying for months, and they reversed 180 degrees.
Wasn't Obama's statement yesterday a lie when he said Russia was trying? It didn't indicate that in the intel assessment.
It didn't indicate that. But listen, Barack Obama is profoundly partisan. The people around him, they are hardcore radicals. John Brennan, who ran the CIA, you know who he voted for in 1976? He voted for Gus Hall. Gus Hall was the Communist Party nominee to be president because John Brennan said Jimmy Carter, who was running in 76, is not liberal enough for John Brennan. He wanted a communist. And by the way,
I'm not gonna lie. When Ted Cruz said this, when I found this information out, I had heard this, but I didn't know. Like, I hadn't done a lot of research on it to, like, really fact check it a lot, because it was like 1976, I think he said. But I literally was like, wow, so Obama voted for a communist. I shouldn't be shocked, but just knowing that, I'm like, okay, that's all we need.
He's admitted to this. He voted for the communist. He wanted a communist president of the United States. Well, fast forward to Barack Obama, and his wish came true. And understand, these partisans are so contemptuous of the American people. What was the Russia hoax about? It was about subverting democracy. They were mad at the voters that they elected Donald Trump.
They want to punish him.
It's the exact same sentiment that led to the lawfare last year of indicting Donald Trump 4 times. That ultimately was not about their hatred for Trump. It was about their contempt for the voters. They wanted to stop the American people from re-electing President Trump. And that contempt for the voters is manifestly through this willingness to lie to Congress and lie to the American people.
All day long, the predictable suspects were saying, well, this is just an attempt to deflect from Epstein. This is all old news, nothing new here, move right along. You just don't want to talk about the Epstein files. That's what they're saying.
Well, except for the fact that that's objectively wrong. There is a lot new here. Over and over and over again, the Obama intelligence community said Russia is not trying to influence this election, not trying to change the outcome, and by the way, is not trying to elect Donald Trump. That was their big narrative, is Putin wanted Trump,
Well, what Tulsi Gabbard just told us is that Putin had dirt. We don't know if it's true or not, but had dirt that you just played about Hillary Clinton having serious emotional and mental problems and being on heavy tranquilizers. And Putin didn't release it. If he wanted Trump to win,
right, that doesn't
he
make any
presumably
sense.
would have released it. But yet, magically, facts that are inconvenient to the Democrats' political narrative, they disappear.
Member of the press today asked if, because of the Supreme Court's decision, John Roberts' decision in the immunity case, could Obama, it was basically implying that Obama has no vulnerability here in an investigation.
I got a Mazzaro knife, and what followed was an absolute fiasco. Here's what really pisses me off.
Briefly describe why that's not accurate 100%.
Look, it is challenging what the Supreme Court has said in the immunity cases. Official decisions are protected by official immunity. So it's clear, for example, Barack Obama ordered a drone strike on Anwar al-Awlaki, an American citizen. He cannot be prosecuted for that because that was an official action. That's what the Supreme Court said. By the way, FDR could not be prosecuted for dropping atom bombs on Japan. Truman could not be prosecuted. Oh, there's a whole host of actions. Rather, Truman for dropping atom bombs, FDR for detaining Japanese citizens, internment. The point is, official decisions of the president.
So was December 9th an official decision? That's a hard
Look, there would be an argument about it. I'll tell you.
He's not going to be prosecuted for treason. But it's not going to happen.
He's not going to be prosecuted in all likelihood for
at all.
treason, but where the criminal liability will start is with members of the Obama administration who went under oath before Congress and lied. Flat out lied. We know Jim Clapper has lied repeatedly, and that will be the beginning of the investigation. Also, fabricating evidence. That investigation needs to play out. This is a very important new trove of information Tulsi Gabbard
Is Comey in trouble, in your view?
Former
He's a
FBI
smart guy,
Director
he's not a dumb
James
person,
Comey.
right? So he, like Obama, they get kind of careful how they
Is he
word
in
certain
trouble?
things. And
It depends what he knew and when he knew it.
Yeah.
Comey is someone who I think had delusions of grandeur. He wanted to be J. Edgar Hoover. It was a serious mistake that President Trump didn't fire him on January 20th, 2017. That was one of the most consequential mistakes of the first Trump administration. By the way, one he didn't repeat in this administration. The second term, I will say President Trump has hit the ground running, very different from the first term, and I think he learned a lot of lessons in the first term and also in the 4 years being out of power. I will say this, Laura, we have never seen in your and my lifetime,
Never.
6 months with remotely as much accomplished as we've seen the Trump presidency in this Republican House and Senate.
never happened. I worked for the Reagan administration. It didn't happen in Reagan, not in my lifetime.
There is a volume and velocity. We had President Trump had the Republican senators over to the White House for dinner on Friday celebrating these victories.
Yeah.
It is incredible. There's a lot more to come.
All right, Senator Cruz, don't be a stranger. Great to see you in studio. Thanks so much.
Hey, Sean Hannity here.
Shout out to Ted Cruz. You know, he makes a great point, but Ben Shapiro, I think, touched on this a little bit better. Not that Ted Cruz didn't, but he just went a little bit more in depth. I think it was on our live stream yesterday when he talked about, or maybe the day before, some of the reasons why the president would be, or a former president would be protected from certain types of, punitive charges, or even any type of like charges in general, just because of some of the executive power that he holds. And a lot of people aren't talking about that, but that's why some of this stuff, Ben Shapiro said a lot of it comes off as overselling, and it is overselling because a lot of it just simply won't stick because of the president's executive power. I think he makes a great point there because a lot of people aren't talking about it, but there have been some that have run on record to say some things about it and to say, hey, he probably won't get convicted at all, right? Like, and that's a good chance too. There's a good chance that he probably won't get convicted at all. Nonetheless, seeing everything come out and knowing what we know is still going to be detrimental to his relationship to some extent. We have to believe that. All right, so now next up we got Fox News. Kevin O'Leary. This is the most important thing Trump can do. So Kevin O'Leary is going to talk about tariffs, paying back the debt of America, and why paying the debt back is the number one thing that he thinks, the most important thing he thinks President Trump can do. So let's take a listen.
All of that revenue coming in tens and tens of billions of dollars. Do you think there's the possibility of a rebate to the American public in terms of all of that money? We're thinking about that, actually. We have so much money coming in. We're thinking about a little rebate, but we have so much money coming in from tariffs that a little rebate for people of a certain income level might be very nice.
Right before arriving in Scotland for trade talks, President Trump says he's looking at ways to take all the revenue earned from his foreign tariffs and put it in your wallet in the form of a rebate check for Americans in certain income brackets. O'Leary Ventures Chairman Kevin O'Leary joins us now to react. Kevin, do you like this idea of a rebate?
No, I tell you the idea I like, and I think every taxpayer likes better than this idea. Use any excess capital to reduce the national debt. That is the most important thing we could be thinking about right now, because it's not just for the people incumbent today, it's the future, because every time interest rates go up or stay where they are right now, it costs more just to pay that debt, much of which is owned by foreigners. So within the administration itself, this is a big debate going on. We should really focus now on doing two things. One, get to a balanced budget. We got the big, beautiful bill through, and that's very important because it sets the tax rate, and it puts us very competitive against the G20 countries. That was good. But it's a $3 trillion add to our debt. So let's use any excess cash anywhere to get to that balanced budget and start paying down that debt. And that would make even more money come to America. Right. Everybody's always come here because it's the best market to invest in, but there is some concern these days about how big our national debt is getting.
Absolutely, and it's a huge burden on future generations. I interviewed the president, Kevin, back in April, and I asked him about these tariffs replacing the income tax, so going further than rebates. Listen. Las aranceles van a reemplazar el income tax?
You know, you're the only one that's asked me that. Oh, I deal with all these big financial geniuses, nobody ever. There is a chance that the money from tariffs could be so great that it would replace. You know, in the old days, about 1870 to 1913, the tariffs were the only form of money.
Yep.
And that's when our nation was relatively the richest. We were the richest.
And Trump's been talking about that for a while now.
Well, the good news is
since he
America's
first won the
still
election,
rich. It's the largest market on earth. Tariffs are a form of tax. We don't have consumption tax in America, but everywhere else they do. And so these reciprocal tariffs that are starting to emerge on deals like in Vietnam or Indonesia, India, EU, Canada, really what's going on is they're rebalancing the VAT taxes, the consumer taxes. But the point is, if all this capital is coming in, the next part of the administration's focus, and I think there's a lot of pressure internally on this, is to start paying down this debt. And the good news is there's other ways to do it. We could open up the ANWR in Alaska and put a tariff on that oil like they do in Norway and just use it all for debt reduction. Debt reduction is the key to prosperity in America.
Yeah, it's also the key to your own personal prosperity. And by the way, one of the reasons we love you, Kevin, is you say the greatest money life hack is to marry just one time. I think you're right about that, and I think you're right about lowering the national debt as well. We owe it to our kids and our grandkids. Kevin O'Leary, always great to get your insight on money. Thank you for.
Yep, shout out to Kevin O'Leary. Yeah, he makes a good point. So, like I said earlier in the live stream, Kevin O'Leary is a money guy. So to me, it's not surprising when he says, when she says, Kevin, does a rebate sound nice? And he's like, no, I have something that sounds nice to every taxpayer, and they would all like it better, and that's paying down the debt. And it makes sense. It's the number one way to prosperity, because if you don't have any debt, you don't owe anybody. So then anything that comes in, anything that comes to you is yours. So I can understand this, why he would want to get rid of this debt. And I know that President Trump wants to do that as well, but you know, he also has other things that he's juggling as the president. Kevin O'Leary, who's not the president, his main focus is going to be like, let's get rid of this debt. Let's get this debt down. So we're going to go to one of the last clips of the live stream. Bongino posts cryptic message about FBI findings. I'll never be the same. So let's take a look at what Dan Bongino had to say.
President Trump is in Scotland today as he celebrates the opening of his new golf course. He is also expected to meet with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer on this trip to talk trade and possibly weigh in further on the war in Gaza, after telling Israel yesterday to, quote, finish the job. Former U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Kurt Volker, is here to discuss. But first, we go to Lucas Tomlinson at the White House with the latest. Lucas.
Well, good afternoon, John. President Trump enjoying some links golf at his club in Turnberry, Turnberry in Scotland, ahead of his meeting with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, where no doubt trade will be on the agenda, although, of course, that was one of the president's most successful trade deals to date, that 10% tariff on the United Kingdom. The president also be discussing the war in Gaza after the prime minister had some words. Here was President Trump before leaving the White House for Scotland.
It was too bad. Hamas didn't really want to make a deal. I think they want to die, and it's very, very bad. And it got to be to a point where you're gonna have to finish the job.
And then earlier today, Britain's prime minister saying on X, quote, Israel must allow aid in overland to end the starvation unfolding in Gaza. The situation
Well,
is
I gotta
desperate.
go back because
We're
this
working
is.
with Jordan to get
I was
aid into
literally
Gaza.
talking to
We
my
are
wife
urgently
about this. I was
United
talking to
Kingdom.
my wife about this earlier today, so I'm gonna run this back so we can listen to it. I'm gonna be honest with you. That's wild what Trump says, but he's right. And I think I told my wife, I said the only reason why he would be saying that is because he's trying to cut a deal with Hamas, you know, and they're not being compliant. They're not trying to like work out a deal. So it's just wild to hear Trump say he's like, I think they want to die, and it's really bad. I'm just like, bro. Like, yo, you gotta love this guy for being himself, because that's like a crazy way to say that. Like, he literally said that he's gonna come up and he says, I think they want to die, and it's really bad.
Off at his club in Turnberry, Turnberry in Scotland, ahead of his meeting with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, where no doubt trade will be on the agenda, although, of course, that was one of the president's most successful trade deals to date, that 10% tariff on the United Kingdom. The president also be discussing the war in Gaza after the prime minister had some words. Here was President Trump before leaving the White House for Scotland.
It was too bad. Hamas didn't really want to make a deal. I think they want to die, and it's very, very bad. And it got to be to a point where you're gonna have to finish the job.
And then earlier.
So this is Keir Starmer. I know you guys saw this, but I'll read it. Israel must allow aid in overland to end the starvation unfolding in Gaza. The situation is desperate. We are working with Jordan to get aid into Gaza. So why did he say like Israel must allow aid in overland?
Today, Britain's prime minister saying on X, quote, Israel must allow aid in overland to end the starvation unfolding in Gaza. The situation is desperate. We are working with Jordan to get aid into Gaza. We are urgently accelerating efforts to evacuate children who need critical medical assistance.
We are urgently accelerating efforts to evacuate children who need critical medical assistance to the UK for treatment. I am determined to find a pathway to peace.
To the UK for treatment, I am determined to find a pathway to peace. Now, former Trump Secretary of State and CIA Director Mike Pompeo had a different take. Here's his response to the Britain's Prime Minister.
Prime Minister Starmer's statement is just fundamentally fraudulent. The Israelis, who are fighting an enemy that's trying to kill them, is providing food to the Gazan people in wartime. As a matter of historical fact, right, to feed your adversary and their civilians while you're still at war with them, that's really quite something.
Now, earlier today, President Trump's
So this is Dan Bongino. He says, I'll never be the same after learning what I've learned. We are going to conduct these righteous and proper investigations by the book and in accordance with the law. We are going to get the answers we all deserve, in capital letters.
The FBI Director Dan Bongino posted something cryptic on X saying, I'll never be the same after learning what I've learned. We're going to conduct these righteous and proper investigations by the book and in accordance with the law. We are going to get the answers we all deserve with any investigation. I cannot predict where it will land.
Yeah, he said, as with any investigation, I cannot predict where it will land, but I can promise you an honest and dignified effort at truth. Not my truth or your truth, but the truth. But the truth.
Promise you an honest and dignified effort at truth, not my truth or your truth, but the truth. Perhaps he's talking about some investigations there into the Epstein case, or perhaps Tulsi Gabbard's investigation. John. And also, this comes ahead of President Trump's meeting with EU President tomorrow. No doubt, trade on the discussions ahead of that August 1 deadline. The 27-nation European Union wants to make a deal ahead of that August 1 deadline, try to reduce those tariffs, and probably likely on the schedule, more golf for President Trump. Of course, a little too early to shoot grouse and pheasant there in Scotland.
Yeah, but you can always hit birdies with a golf club. Lucas Tomlinson. Try it. Thanks.
Hey, it's Will Kane. Click here to subscribe.
Oh, man. Dan Bongino. Well, we know Dan Bongino has been very upset since AG Pam Bondi made that announcement that, you know, there wasn't anything left to be, you know, revealed when it comes to the Epstein files. People were really upset for that reason. We saw Dan Bongino say something about it, even mention something that, you know, might be leading towards him resigning. So we saw that happening in the media for a little while. We saw J.D. Vance having a meeting with Cash Patel and Dan Bongino over, I think it was last weekend. It was where they said something like that, or the weekend before last. So we know some of these things were happening, and Dan Bongino wasn't the happiest. But it seems like he still wants some things to come out. Who knows if his hands are tied? Who knows what we're gonna hear? But it seems like he still wants the truth to come out. So with that being said, we're gonna go to the last clip of the live stream. Shout out to Cliff Buell, YouTube content creator that focuses mainly on Christian content. Tonight's title is, Should a Christian Attend a Gay Wedding? This makes a lot of sense. Let's take a listen.
Here's a fun one. Should a Christian attend a gay wedding? Watch.
Should a Christian attend a gay wedding?
Of course not.
Yes.
Love is not love, and lust is not love.
There's no such thing as a gay wedding. The Bible has very clear boundaries of what marriage is. Marriage is a covenant between a man and a woman. For you as a Christian to stand there and celebrate something that brings a mockery to what God has created, you can't call yourself a faithful Christian.
If you're a dude, why do you want to watch two guys kissing? That's very gay. Very gay. Why are you gay?
You will never go to a strip club to support your friend who is a stripper. As the people of God, we do not celebrate that which God hates.
Can we stop saying he's gonna get offended, they're gonna get offended? Can we change the question, not what if they get offended, to what if God gets offended? Because remember, your loyalty to God is greater than your loyalty to your friend. I would rather offend them by not attending that wedding than offend by God by disobeying him.
The only reason you should be going to a gay wedding is if you're gonna stand up and say, I object, and start throwing Bibles at them, and start saying, this is a mockery of my God's design of marriage.
Here's a fun one.
Okay, and start throwing Bibles at them? I was like, okay, they're a little bit overzealous, but everyone has, you know, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. They said some good things, and they said some things that I think are wild. I'm gonna just be honest with you. The throwing Bibles part at a wedding, even if it is a gay wedding, not the greatest idea. I'm just gonna throw that out there. I don't think God wants you to go somewhere and start a fight. And you could throw a Bible at someone and get punched in the face. I'm just saying, you can. Right? So especially if they're not a Christian. So, and that can happen if they are a Christian, right? Because you just hit them with something. So I just wouldn't do that. There are things like triggers and you could just get knocked out. So I don't think that that's wise. But I mean, when he says you would never go to the strip club and support your friend that's a stripper, I would say that's probably true. That's probably true, right? So that, I mean, that's a good point there, right? Like, you can have somebody argue back, well, at the gay wedding, no one's going to be half naked, right? But either way, like, I still get where he's going with that. I've had friends that had to deal with this. I've been in this situation before. I would say this, like, some people lean the way that these two lean, and some people have been conflicted about it, and they have decided that they are not going to go, and some people have decided that they are going to go. When they say that if you did go attend a gay wedding that you can't call yourself a faithful Christian, I don't know. I feel like there's a little bit of redundancy, because if there's no such thing as a gay wedding, like in a sense they're saying like, well, even if there is a gay wedding, God's not going to acknowledge it anyway. Well, then I don't really think somebody cannot be a faithful Christian if they're attending something that God's not even acknowledging. But that's just my take on it. Like, I digress. But I understand where they're coming from with it. You know, I do. So if you guys ever find yourself in that position, because this is the only thing about things like this, because it's like, does it only go for a gay wedding, right? Like, should I be going to a wedding and it's a heterosexual wedding, even if I know that heterosexual couple doesn't honor God in any way. So what, then you're gonna say yes because it's a man and a woman? You see murky waters there, you know? So that's why I said I've seen people on both lines when it comes to things like this. I've seen people attend and I've seen people not attend, you know? I've wanted to attend and I've wanted to not attend. That's just me being transparent. If I did attend, I'm not gonna say I don't think somebody could say it, but if someone were to say, well, you're not a faithful Christian because you attend a gay wedding, there's a good chance I would say I don't care, because that would just be their opinion and it would not be a fact. That would literally just be their opinion. I could have done something that they don't like as a brother and sister in Christ. I could have done something that I possibly might need to repent for, but that doesn't mean I'm not a faithful Christian. That doesn't mean I don't love Jesus. So I think sometimes like people can do a little bit much there, because if you're gonna say, well, a heterosexual wedding's fine regardless of anything because they're a straight couple and that's what God honors, is straightness. Well, God doesn't honor heterosexual couples not honoring him. So, you know, that's where I say that that's something to where I'm not going to say it's a subjective thing as a follower in Christ. You'll probably experience some sort of conviction, especially if you just yourself are experiencing it, because Paul talks about that. If it's a sin to you, then it's a sin, right? So you might feel a level of conviction to where you don't want to go. You might not feel a level of conviction to where you don't mind going or you want to attend, right? But I don't think going, and nonetheless, either way you decide, and saying you don't need to go unless you're going to stand up and object and throw Bibles and say this is a mockery of God. I mean, you can stand up and say it's a mockery of God. I personally wouldn't recommend throwing Bibles. I just wouldn't recommend that. All right, guys. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and shut down the live stream. Again, guys, my fault about not getting to you 2 times today, but I believe I did do it on Monday. I was asking my wife that. It's just, news flies fast. But yes, the goal is to get it to you guys at least 2 times in one day throughout the week. So at least one day a week, I want to give you guys at least 2 live streams. If it's not Saturday, I usually aim for Monday because it's a fairly slow day for me. So with that being said, I will see you guys on Monday. Enjoy the remainder of your weekend. Take care of yourselves. Take care of one another. Love yourselves. Love one another. Be peaceful. Peace.